Olivia Troy is there with us. Stephanie, it's always good to have a plan B. Stephanie Grisham is also with us, the former White House press secretary, Olivia Troy. She was an advisor to Vice President Mike Pence. Olivia, let me start with you first. These midterm elections did not bring the red wave many expected. What are your thoughts? You were so close to the inner working. Actually, both of you were very close. You were involved in the inner workings of the Trump White House. I wonder if this was as much a referendum on the former president as it was on the president who's in the White House right now.
Yeah, look, I think that American people voted for sanity and their voices were heard. And I think that they're tired of the ugly politicking that's going on, especially in the Republican Party. I think democracy did matter. I think President Biden was correct in calling it out and calling out the extreme MAGA and what it stands for. And I think, and I also think, look, Dobbs, I think women came out, young people came out, and they said enough. We don't like the direction that this is going in with all these crazy candidates that the GOP decided to run. But look, it's not just a referendum on Trump. It's a referendum on the GOP as a whole, because he didn't run these candidates alone.
And Stephanie, your former boss has said he's going to make this special announcement on Tuesday. His own advisors are essentially saying now that he is going to have this announcement, that he is going to run for president in 2024. I mean, you and I, we used to be out there on the campaign trail together. You working for Donald Trump, I was there covering. So we know what this is going to entail in the next couple of years. But do you think the party goes with him?
For the first time, and I want to say, I want to have a caveat here. We've all seen this movie before, right? I mean, right after January 6th, you had Lindsey Graham and McCarthy saying this is all Trump's fault, et cetera, we need to move on, et cetera, et cetera. And then a few days later, McCarthy was down at Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. So with the caveat that we've seen this movie before, I'm going to echo a bit of what Olivia just said. Like, the voters have spoken, and they have spoken. And I think the Republican Party really needs to look within right now and decide, are we going to go with the voters who hire us, or are we going to go with this one man, Donald Trump? And sadly, I think Republicans are just going to keep with the people who keep them in office, the people who hire them on.
And Olivia, I want to get your take on this tweet from Senator Josh Hawley. He tweeted this: the old party is dead, time to bury it, build something new. Of course, we remember it was Hawley who was pumping his fist on January 6th. What do you think of this call for a course correction? Because I suppose it is to some extent the senator saying it's time to move on.
Yeah, I find that interesting, especially coming from Josh Hawley, because the party that he enabled and emboldened and that fist pump in the air is a party that lost. And so, I'm a little bit confused and perplexed by that tweet. Is he saying that he's going to turn away from the extremists and MAGA and all of these kind of culture wars that are happening in? So I think that remains to be seen. Like, I'm looking, I'm a lifelong Republican voter, but I am sick of this. And I am so glad that moderates voted out there and had their voices heard. And look, I'm paying attention here, and I'm looking for a sanity. I'm looking for a John McCain Republican, and I don't see one right now still.
And Stephanie, let's listen to this comment from Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana earlier this morning when he was asked if Trump is still in control of the party. Really fascinating comment. Let's listen.
If this is the result of these elections, but the Republican Party still has sort of the same leadership at RNC, Ronna McDaniel, Kevin McCarthy of House Republicans, Mitch McConnell of Senate Republicans, and of course Donald Trump is sort of the leader out there. If there's no change there, do you think that's a problem for Republicans going forward?
First, we're not a cult. We're not like, okay, there's one person who leads our party. If we have a sitting president, she or he will be the leader of our party.
I mean, Stephanie, if you have to say it out loud, we're not a cult.
Oh, live TV. I apologize about my dog. Absolutely. I don't even know where that came from. That seemed very, very defensive to me. Again, and I don't mean to just keep repeating myself, but the voters have spoken, and I'm really hopeful for that. And let's see what's to come. Tuesday, I'm hearing that Trump is inviting people who he endorsed members of Congress to come down and be there for his big announcement. And let's see who shows up. Let's see who stands with him. And then let's go from there and see, you know, who will be in a primary against him. Because I think now more than ever, I think there will be more people who could primary him, whether that is DeSantis. I know everybody's talking about that, but you've got some really other, you've got Pence, you've got maybe a Kemp, you've got, these are just my guesses. So for the first time in a really long time, I'm hopeful. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't think that the base will ever leave Trump until, you know, he's a completely foregone conclusion. Again, sorry about my dog. But I think that at the end of the day, he cannot win a general, and people are seeing that now. And everybody wants to vote, you know, for the good guy.
Yeah. And Olivia, let's switch gears a little bit. Democrats had a lot going against them. Inflation, you know, those high gas prices. People would drive by the gas station and see the high gas prices. Crime was on the minds of many voters, depending on where they live in this country. Yet Democrats managed to keep control of the Senate. What do you think it was? Do you think maybe it was partly the Dobbs decision, I suppose, but also what about President Biden's appeal to Americans to hang on to their democracy, to defend democracy?
Yeah, I think that played a big role. I think, look, Americans came out and they voted for Democrats. You know, Republicans don't want to say that out loud, and they're kind of sitting there looking at each other thinking, what happened? Oh, we had bad messaging? No, you ran terrible candidates, and we told you that you would lose, and we told you that this would destroy the party if you went down that route, and you still did it. And so I think, look, Democrats had better candidates this time around, and I think the GOP will continue to see losses again in the future if they continue to allow these sort of narratives to take hold in the party. And I also think they need to stop with this anti-immigrant stuff. You know, I know everyone's glorifying DeSantis' win in Florida. Well, I don't know. I don't know if the rest of the country stands for, you know, busing people across the country like cattle and having immigrants shipped around like that. I mean, if you're actually going to talk about immigration and border security, I need to see some real policies here. And I don't see that coming out of these people.
Yeah, Stephanie, I think that was a big, message sent by the voters in these midterms is that I think a lot of voters out there are tired of the nastiness and the meanness and the cruelty, people making jokes about Nancy Pelosi's husband, that sort of thing. You know, Kari Lake is one of those politicians who did that. And I'm curious, I know you came out of Arizona Republican politics. I mean, this is pretty fascinating to watch here. What happens if Kari Lake loses to Katie Hobbs? Does the Arizona Republican Party only have themselves to blame if that happens?
I think so. I mean, and I think that can go for a lot of the Trump-backed candidates. I mean, you know, I know I'm moving away from Kari Lake for a minute, but you think about Blake Masters. Doug Ducey, the current governor, could have been in line for that Senate seat, and he would have won. He would have won handily, or it would have been a really good race against Mark Kelly. Instead, we had Blake Masters. And so I do think the Republican Party, again, they're going to have to do some soul searching on a state level and a national level. You know, what happens if Kari loses? I will be very, very happy. I believe in my state of Arizona. I've said that for months now. I have openly endorsed and been happy for Katie Hobbs. I've been texting with her and cheering her on. So I really hope Katie Hobbs wins because, again, it will be the voters speaking about, you know, no more chaos, no more election denials, no more lies, just govern, just do what's best for the state. And this is in a state, a border state, where I'm an immigration hawk. I am very strong about my views on immigration, having lived in Arizona for 20 years. But she will be what's best for that state and our country. And same with that Secretary of State race. Mark Finchem is an election denier. He's already, of course, stoking that this is, you know, cheating. But I'm really proud of the state of Arizona thus far. And I think, again, this is just the voters have spoken in a really big way. And the Republican Party needs to sit and think for a minute.